What's up, gang? Kevin here, Life22. I don't know if you noticed, I'm sporting the new flags. We just got them in. We got the PragerU flag. Big supporter of PragerU. Myself personally and my companies donate every year to Prager University. And the newest in the Daily Wire merchandise, we had to get a Let's Go Brandon flag. So, shout out to the Daily Wire. We're also members of them. So, and I know you probably noticed my hair is getting ridiculous. So, out looking for a hairstylist to make this mullet transition go well for Christmas Day. Anyways, so I got a little time before me and the missus head out, and I wanted to do a book review. And actually, I had a book that I read right before that, but I have literally like 2.5 pages to go through. It was like a 16-hour book. So, where this one was like a 3-hour book, 2.5? 2.5 or 3-hour book. Maybe it was 3.5. Anyways, this one is by Leo Tolstoy. It is The Death of... And I always want to say Ivan, but it's Ivan. Yeah, that's it. Yep, The Death of Ivan Illyich, which I guess is pretty good classic. So for those of you who don't know, Leo Tolstoy, I believe, is also the same author that wrote War and Peace, which was at one point like notoriously acclaimed for being a good book as well as one of the longest books. And I have it in my library. I have yet to read it. It is like 50 some odd hours or something like that. And then someone told me to listen to Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged, and I added that to my collection, and that's like 65 hours. So it beats War and Peace by an additional 15 hours. So we'll eventually make it to those books. That said, so essentially this book was about Ivan, and Ivan was a Russian judicial. He was a justice. He was a district attorney and a lawyer, and then he became like a justice. And essentially, he worked his way up to his judgeship. And it kind of goes over like a lot of different things in the book about how I didn't make very many notes on it. It wasn't a long book. I made notes on the very end, and I took a quote because I thought it was very revealing. But essentially the book leads up to the fact that his life was... He did not prioritize. Like, work was everything to him, and then he did what he had to get what he wanted in the world, and he got a very pretty wife, and then there was kids, and he didn't want to be home, and so he actually did what he had to make his work necessary. And as money started rolling in, he started allowing his spouse to, kind of just spend, and you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, he had to keep working harder, and they started growing apart, and they resented each other at the end. They hated one another. His son, his daughter was, its dad, and it was, he just, and he regretted it at the end, and maybe I need to read it a few more times, but the book was, he was afraid of death because he didn't want to do this to his children. He realized that his children didn't like him, and he didn't like them, and he grew to this point in his life that, wow, I'd be better off dead and away from them. And then towards the very end, he started to realize that, and maybe it was unspoken, and maybe it was just me perceiving this, but it was almost like I should have lived my life differently. But I worry for them, and then at the very end, he realizes, I'm not worried for them. They will be fine without me. And he comes to this self-proclaimed, this self-realized understanding. And there's something to be said about that. I guess, I just lost my father, so I mean, this is, I was telling somebody else, because I've had two other friends lose their parents in the same time period, one 2 days after, and one like 2 weeks ago. And it's tough. It's tough. I would say they have it tougher because theirs were sudden, where mine has been like slowly dying for 20 years. So it was like it was inevitable. But I said this to them at the wakes, and it's, life is a constant reality check where you're constantly checking on your own mortality, and the mortality of loved ones around you, and you always have to keep your mortality in check. And death is one of those reminders, and it's something that we have to we live and we die, and people forget about the living. They get into the motions, and then they forget about living, and then they get close to death and they want to live, and it's, you've had all this time to live. Life is short, life is precious. You need to learn this. And a lot of people, they get stuck in a pattern, and they get these dopamine hits by watching their phone all day, or and you don't get them if you like or subscribe to our channel. So just scientific information there. But no, it does. You get these dopamine hits. You go through withdrawal and stuff like that, and you end up wanting to get I need my phone. I gotta get on my phone. I have to do this. I have to do that. And then they I was one, like, I love video games. I just never have time to play them because I have to work, and then I come home and there's the kids, and then we've got projects at the house between building a new chicken coop, and it's just all these little things. And you got rental properties, you got to take care of them, and it's just, and you get tied up with things like that, and you're busy in living life. And I used to love video games because I could just get lost, and enjoy them. But at the end of the day, you also, like, you could burn up like 2 weeks and not even realize it on a stupid video game. And in the grand scheme of things, it meant nothing. Now, there were some games that, like, I would play with buddies, right? Like, you'd have Halo, and you get like 6 guys over the house, and you all drink and play Halo, and that shit's fun. And you're interacting with other human beings, and in a sense that is living, because we could tell stories of times that we played together and drank and hang out. But when you sit there playing like a solo game by yourself, and you've locked yourself in your house or your apartment or your room for days on end, and then all of a sudden you come out of the room, and what did you do? Like, you got lack of vitamin D from not getting sunshine. You clearly weren't exercising, so you're not being healthy in that regard. You probably went with something quick to eat, so probably wasn't healthy either. Like, even a salad seems strenuous when you need to get back to your game. And it's one of those things, like, games and dopamine hits and phones and all that stuff has that tendency to do it on people. And this is almost timeless, because this is written in a time period where you can just lose yourself in other stuff that isn't, and at the end of the day, like, your family means everything. And when you're looking at, like, the end of your life, and you sit there and you're like, my kids hate me, my wife hates me. In the book, many times she wished he would die. Like, that's, like, you get in those blow-up fights where you kind of, like, you think horrible thoughts, you're like, I just, and even a little kid will say that, I hate you, I wish you were dead. They don't mean that, because kids don't understand the mortality that their parents understand, because their parents are older, and they've seen more people die, and they understand the weight and the gravity of those words. And as you get older, you reserve that anger, and sometimes it builds up and you let it all out at once, and you don't really mean it. But I'm sure that was in this book too, because that was the case in this book, and they don't really. She doesn't want him to die, but she definitely does not like him. She definitely, there was definitely something broken in their relationship, and it needed to be fixed. and they were in a bad way, and between his own selfishness and her own pettiness, their relationship got out of hand, and it transcended to the children, and it's just books like these are great reminders, great stories, right? Like fables, right? The reason you tell children fables is so that they understand, they learn a life lesson. And you can't just tell them once. You have to, we have to use one another to remind each other of these fables and stories. Like, I know what you're going through, man. I completely understand. You know what you need to do? You need to listen to that fable, yada, yada, yada. And then it gives you, it gives you that reality, hello. And it's easy to hide from reality. We went over this in a previous Jordan Peterson book. It's opening up, and we'll get into this in a book that I read to the kids that I wanted to go back and review offline from the kids, because the kids heard it. It was a great kid story, but it was Jordan Peterson had pointed out it's a great book with deeper meaning, and it shows how people don't want to address the problems that they're having. They've got a lot of problems, and no one wants to address it, and then you just sweep it under the rug, and we'll deal with it later. We'll get into that more into the next book, but the one thing before we wrap up here was the end. Where is pain and death? There is no terror, because death is neither. And I put in parentheses there, pain nor terror. So in the place of death, there was light. And that's how they wrap the book out. They don't tell you he died. You just get it from that statement there. Where is the pain and death? He's asking himself. There is no terror. Well, where is the pain and death? There is no terror, because death is neither. In the place of death, there was light. So you could probably break that down into a bunch of different, take it how we will. And I think that's very deep, and it was a really good way to end the book. Which I really did enjoy this reading. This reading was, and I can't remember the guy who read it, but he also had read the version of 1984 that I had listened to at the beginning of the pandemic, which was awesome. I was like, I recognize that voice, and I went and go, oh, that's the same guy. He's the same author. He's the same narrator. So that was enjoyable. But you could go down many paths with this ending quote here from the end of the book. And, I mean, you could go biblical with it. What does the light represent? What does this represent? What does that represent? And I think that really just makes... I think it was a perfect way to cap the end of this book off, and it was a good read. I mean, if you've got a free 2.5 to 3.5 hours, get an Audible subscription, and you can jam it out in a day at work. I mean, even just pop in an earbud. I recommend Raycons. These little guys, they were like $80 for the generic, for the base level. The noise suppression on for phone calls is not the greatest. I'm upgrading hopefully for Christmas. Santa hopefully got my order. So, but yeah, guys. So we will catch you guys soon, maybe later tonight, maybe tomorrow. I get a few days off of work that I'll be spending some time with the kids, but also be catching up on side jobs, rentals, and we got the chicken coop to finish. So we got a pile of stuff going on, but I can squeeze in some more time to get another 2 book reviews out. We've got some other stuff to review, and so we'll catch you guys next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and catch you on the flippy flop.